Instant panic hits tennis legends after Nadal leaks secret locker room ritual. Have you ever wondered what actually happens inside the mind of a legend before he steps onto the court and crushes every opponent? Welcome to Tennis Insider, where we don't just watch tennis, but dissect its ultimate untold secrets. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an exclusive story. And today, we begin with a tiny moment that changed an entire generation's perspective on Rafael Nadal. It was a quiet afternoon in Paris. No audience, no cameras, no Grand Slam pressure. Just an empty locker room after practice and an old, stubborn locker that refused to open. What would most professional players do in that situation? They would sigh, shake it out of frustration, and walk away. That's a normal human reaction, saving energy for what truly matters. But not Rafa. He stood before that locker as if it were his final opponent in a Roland Garros final. His eyes narrowed, his jaw clenched, his entire body channeling absolute focus onto a lifeless metal latch. And then a click echoed. The locker popped open. Instantly, he yelled, "Vamos!" and pumped his fist into the air as if he had just won championship point in a $1 million match. The witness to that moment, a veteran player who had been through hundreds of big matches, stood frozen, not because of the bizarre celebration, but because he instantly understood a chilling truth. This guy cannot distinguish between a crucial match and an unimportant one. To him, everything is a final. That spine-chilling realization, according to the witness, was more terrifying than any forehand or serve Rafa ever hit on the court. Because you can train to counter a technique, but you cannot train to counter a mindset with no limits. The moment that locker popped open, Rafael Nadal's path to 14 Roland Garros titles had truly begun. Tennis world in shock after Nadal unleashes the most terrifying forehand in history. Throughout tennis history, countless forehands have been hailed as extraordinary. Ivan Lendl with his sledgehammer-like steel power, Pete Sampras with laser-like precision, Roger Federer with the graceful beauty of an artisan. But when Rafael Nadal appeared on the clay courts of Roland Garros with a forehand packing the craziest topspin ever measured in the sport's history, the tennis world wasn't just surprised, they were completely paralyzed. Statistics show that Nadal's forehand generates an average of 3,200 to 4,900 revolutions per minute, double, even triple that of other top players. But numbers never tell the full story. The guys standing on the other side of the net are the ones who truly understand what that feels like. Rafa's ball doesn't follow a normal trajectory. It soars high, much higher than any other player's, to the point where you think it's sailing out. Your brain starts calculating, ball is going out, no need to play it. Then suddenly, the massive spin drags it straight down just inside the baseline, kicking up to your shoulder or even your head at an angle that is mathematically impossible to counterattack. The racket in your hand simply isn't designed to deal with that. Many clay court specialists have confessed they felt they were fighting not a human, but a force of nature, like trying to stop a tsunami with a small wooden plank. That futility becomes painfully obvious from the very first points, and it only gets heavier as the match goes on. Rafa's most terrifying weapon isn't his power, it's the sheer despair he plants in his opponent's mind every time the ball meets his racket. Instant regret hits opponents after drawing Rafael Nadal on clay court. There is one moment every professional tennis player dreads more than anything else during the clay court season, looking at the draw and seeing the name Rafael Nadal right next to theirs. Not because they know they will lose, but because they know they have no answers, and that is far crueler than defeat. Many veteran players have confessed that the night before facing Rafa on clay is one of the most sleepless nights of their careers. Not because of typical pre-match nerves, but because their minds run in endless circles inside a maze with no exit. They review every possible tactic, every hypothetical weakness, every lucky scenario. And the final answer is always a cold, empty void. What makes Nadal on clay completely different from any other challenge in tennis is that he gives his opponents absolutely no psychological foothold. Most great players have at least one flaw, however small, that you can cling to in order to build hope. An occasionally shaky backhand, an attackable second serve, a fleeting moment of lost focus. But Rafa on clay, every corner you look at is a solid, impenetrable wall. And when you spend the entire match searching for a door that doesn't exist, you've already lost in your mind before the scoreboard reflects that reality. Novak Djokovic's coach leaks secret tactics, survival first against Nadal. In the world of professional tennis, coaches are the keepers of the deepest secrets. They sit in closed rooms, analyzing every weakness, drawing up complex tactics to defeat specific opponents. That's their job, turning data into strategy. But there was a conversation in Novak Djokovic's preparation room right before a match against Rafa on clay that the coach later admitted was the strangest conversation of his career. He had prepared everything: detailed analysis charts, potential attack points, tactical movement diagrams. But as he started speaking, he realized the entire conversation revolved around just one single question: how do we survive long enough? Not how to win, not how to apply pressure, but how to avoid completely collapsing in the first hour. That tiny but incredibly telling detail speaks volumes about Nadal's caliber on clay. When Novak Djokovic, the player with the most Grand Slams in history, the man who has forced Rafa to bow his head many times, when even his team has to start with a survival equation, you realize Rafa's dominance isn't just about technique. It's about a psychological authority that cannot be countered by any tactic drawn on a whiteboard. Legends in shock: how Rafael Nadal destroyed the clay court playbook. If you grew up in Spain, Italy, or any country with a rich clay court tradition, you were taught that this surface has immutable laws. Patience is the ultimate weapon. Defense is the foundation. You wait for your opponent to make a mistake, and then you counterattack. That is the philosophy that survived for decades, proven by legends like Bjorn Borg, Mats Wilander, and Thomas Muster, men who dominated the red dirt with that exact mindset. Then Rafael Nadal showed up, read that entire playbook, understood every single page, and then tore it into tiny pieces and threw it in the trash. What allowed Rafa to revolutionize clay court tennis wasn't that he denied the importance of patience. It was that he combined that patience with a ferocious attacking instinct no one on clay had ever possessed. He could slide several meters, his body almost horizontal to the court, hitting the ball from what, according to all laws of physics, was an absolute defensive posture, and then return it with the speed and spin of a proactive attack. Seasoned players across the net couldn't believe their eyes.
They had executed the plan perfectly, pushed him deep, created a wide angle, waited for a weak ball to finish the point. But the weak ball never came. Instead came a heavy, violently spinning ball flying straight into the furthest corner of their court. The plan didn't fail because they executed it poorly. It failed because Rafa didn't exist in the same physical reality as the rest of the tennis world. Instant regret hits veteran after facing one 19-year-old Rafa Nadal. In 2005, at the Canadian Open, a 35-year-old player stepped onto the center court with the mindset of a warrior who had been through it all. He had faced the biggest names in the world throughout his long career. He knew the feeling of standing under massive pressure and not crumbling. His opponent that day was just a 19-year-old teenager from Spain, someone many still viewed as a rising young talent rather than a truly dominant force. The first few minutes of that match forever changed how the veteran understood what true power in tennis looked like. It wasn't the forehand, it wasn't the foot speed, though both were terrifyingly unbelievable. What truly sent chills down his spine was what he saw in the teenager's eyes. Not a single ounce of hesitation. There wasn't a moment where Rafa looked across the net and wondered if he could win the match. Every ball was struck with the absolute certainty of a man who knew the outcome was already decided. While the veteran needed to dedicate part of his mind to managing pressure, controlling anxiety, and reminding himself he could absolutely win, Rafa didn't waste a millisecond on any of that. His entire mind was focused on one place, the next ball. And that ruthless difference decided everything from the very first points. Tennis fans go crazy after Nadal ends Federer's 5-year grass court streak. Wimbledon 2008 was one of those days that tennis lovers will recount until they literally no longer can. On the most sacred green grass in the sport's history, in front of tens of thousands of stunned spectators, Rafa Nadal did what most of the world deemed impossible. He defeated Roger Federer in a final that lasted nearly 5 hours, ending Federer's 65-match winning streak on grass. Let that number truly sink in. 65 consecutive wins, 5 undefeated years. Federer on grass wasn't just a great player, he was a supernatural entity, an unbeatable force on a surface born to serve his playstyle. And Rafa ended all of that in 4 hours and 48 minutes of the most beautiful, intense, and emotional match ever played in the history of the sport. But the true significance of that miracle wasn't just about Wimbledon. The real meaning lay in the question it posed to every player who had to face Rafa on clay. If he can do this on grass, enemy territory, where every advantage leans toward the opponent, then what on earth are you supposed to do when fighting him on his own turf? The answer from every professional player facing that question is the same: a long silence followed by a slow shake of the head. Instant tears hit fans after Nadal's miracle comeback at 35 years old. There are moments in sports that transcend technique or tactics, elevating into stories about the human condition. In January 2022, Rafa Nadal stepped onto the court at Melbourne Arena for the Australian Open final at 35 years old after months of absence due to a severe foot injury that most pundits silently understood as the end of his peak career. He lost the first 2 sets. And he didn't just lose, he was completely dominated by Daniil Medvedev. Medvedev was playing the best tennis of his life at that moment, solid and unshakable.
The crowd in the stands, the millions watching on screens around the world, began to face the reality that Rafa's story might end like this, in silence, on the hard courts of Melbourne, 10,000 miles away from Roland Garros. Then the third set began, and something within Rafael Nadal's body and soul shifted in a way that sports science simply has no language to fully describe. He didn't make a comeback because Medvedev collapsed. He came back by elevating himself to an entirely different plane of existence. Over the next 3 consecutive sets, he played tennis not like a man fighting to survive, but like a man declaring that greatness has no expiration date. Tears burst out in the stands and all over the world, not just because Rafa won the championship, but because for those 3 hours, he reminded all of us that the human heart can be stronger than anything else. Experts in shock, Rafael Nadal does not play on clay, he is the clay. To understand why Rafael Nadal is an unrepeatable phenomenon, look at the history of the clay court masters before him. Thomas Muster, the Austrian with an iron will, who won Roland Garros in 1995 after recovering from a knee injury so severe that doctors told him he would never play professionally again. Sergi Bruguera, the brilliant Spanish technician who won back-to-back titles in Paris. They were all true masters of the dirt. But there is a boundary separating them from Nadal that cannot be bridged by any amount of talent or effort. They played great on clay, but Rafa, he doesn't just play on clay, he is the clay. This distinction might sound poetic, but it is actually entirely technical. When you play well on a surface, you must constantly adapt, reading the bounce, adjusting the tempo, managing the fatigue of moving on the dirt. But when you are the surface, no adaptation is necessary.
Every characteristic of that court, the high bounce, the slow pace, the topspin advantage, automatically serves your playstyle as if it were custom designed for you from the start. That is exactly what happened when Rafa stepped onto the red dirt of Roland Garros. The very gravity of the court simply tilted in his favor. Tennis world in shock after Nadal makes permanent claim on Roland Garros. 14 Roland Garros titles. Stop for a moment and really let that number sink in. Not 3, not 5, not even 8 or 10, 14. In a tournament where legends dedicate their entire careers just to win a single championship, Rafael Nadal arrived and literally registered the title deeds to that land. The period from 2005 to 2022, nearly 2 decades, was a time when the sporting world saw absolutely everything change. Racket technology evolved. New generations of players constantly emerged with physical conditioning and skills superior to the last. The playstyle of professional tennis was refined and transformed year by year. And through all those changes, one thing remained constant. When Roland Garros began, Rafael Nadal was the man you did not want to meet. His legacy doesn't lie in the numbers, even though those numbers have far surpassed anyone's imagination. Rafa's true legacy is how he redefined the limits of sporting greatness. He proved that willpower isn't just an additive to talent, it's a multiplier. He proved that an unyielding heart can overcome injury, age, and even generations of younger, faster, stronger opponents. And he proved that there are people who don't just play a sport, they become a symbol of something far bigger than the sport itself. If the story of Rafael Nadal touches something inside you, admiration, inspiration, or simply the pure joy of a tennis fan, subscribe to Tennis Insider today.
We have so many more stories like this waiting to be told. And every story starts with a single question. Do you truly understand everything happening inside the world of tennis?